in 1958, the government passed a new law that no Africans could perform in the cities, in any of the city halls, and so forth. And that's why I left it.
That the story of black artists in South Africa during apartheid isn't one of privilege or exemption, but one of unimaginable resilience. That their success wasn't handed to them by the state, but fought for with courage, coded words, and sometimes even their lives. These were not artists creating in freedom. They were creators under siege, battling one of the harshest political systems of the 20th century. Yet somehow, against all odds, their voices carried, their music spread, their art inspired, and their images shook the conscience of the world. To understand how they succeeded, we have to go back into the world of apartheid itself. Imagine a government so obsessed with control that it dictated where you lived, who you associated with, and whether or not you had the right to perform your art. This wasn't just casual segregation. It was an entire political system built on domination, on keeping black South Africans voiceless, powerless, and invisible. The apartheid regime didn't just want to separate people by race. It wanted to police the imagination, to cut off any possibility that art could inspire resistance or hope. From 1948 until the early 1990s, South Africa was a place where the ideology of Baaskop, white domination, ruled every aspect of life. Laws like the Group Areas Act of 1950 tore people out of their homes, dismantled entire neighborhoods, and scattered communities. Places like Sophiatown, which had been a vibrant cultural hub, were bulldozed. Imagine jazz clubs filled with life, poetry being read in dimly lit rooms, people dancing to music that blended African rhythms with American jazz, and then, overnight, it's all gone, destroyed by the state. Families pushed into cramped, lifeless townships with little more than dust roads and tin shacks. For artists, this wasn't just about losing a home. It was about losing access to an audience, a stage, and a creative heartbeat. Then came the pass laws. These required every black South African to carry a passbook, a reference book, just to move through the country. If you were caught without it in a so-called white area, you faced arrest. Now imagine being a musician, needing to perform in Johannesburg or Cape Town, but you can't even get there without risking harassment, arrest, or violence. Freedom of movement, the lifeblood of any performer, was stolen, and if that wasn't enough, there was censorship. The Publications and Entertainments Act of 1963 gave the government the power to ban any material it thought was objectionable. That could mean obscene, indecent, or even something that dared to ridicule white South Africa. The criteria were deliberately vague, which meant the censors could strike down almost anything. A painting, a poem, a song, a photograph. Nothing was safe, and to back it up, the Suppression of Communism Act of 1950 allowed them to silence anyone they claimed was spreading communist doctrine. For the regime, communism was a catch-all word that included any talk of black liberation. So here we have a world where artists couldn't move freely, couldn't live freely, and couldn't even express themselves freely. Yet this is the very environment where black artists managed to rise. How? By turning their art into resistance. You see, success for these artists wasn't measured in record sales or exhibitions in fancy galleries. It wasn't about mainstream radio play or critical reviews in South Africa's newspapers. Those platforms were tightly controlled by the regime anyway. Success was survival. Success was finding a way to get their message across, despite everything. Success was giving their communities a voice when the government was trying to silence them. This is why the art of the time is often called resistance art. It wasn't art for art's sake. It was political. It was dangerous. Every brushstroke, every lyric, every photograph became an act of defiance. Painters like George Pemba depicted the realities of township life with brutal honesty. No romanticizing, no filters, just raw truth. Musicians created songs that looked harmless on the surface, but carried coded messages of freedom. Photographers risked their lives to document the brutality of the police. Think about Yvonne Chaka, whose song I'm Winning, My Dear Love slipped past the censors, even though it was really about Winnie Mandela. To the government, it looked like a love song about domestic life. But the people knew what it meant. Chicco did something similar with his song We Miss You Manolo, which was actually about Nelson Mandela. By tweaking the name, he tricked the censors. Imagine the brilliance of that, using music as a puzzle that only your community could solve. Jazz saxophonist Winston Mankunku Ngozi took another route. His iconic album Yakhal Inkomo, which means the crying bull, used a metaphor so powerful that everyone understood it. The bellow of a bull smelling blood became the cry of a people under oppression. And even when he was forced to play behind a curtain during performances with white musicians, yes, literally hidden from the audience because of his race, he kept going. His music carried the struggle, even when his face couldn't. And then there were the shebeens. When the state shut down multiracial clubs and music venues, black culture simply went underground. Shebeens, unofficial taverns often run out of someone's home, became the heartbeat of jazz, poetry, and protest songs. These weren't just places to drink. They were secret schools of resistance, where communities came together, where music was shared, and where hope was kept alive. But of course, for many, the walls of South Africa were too tight. Exile became both a curse and a strange kind of blessing. Miriam Makeba, affectionately known as Mama Africa, was banned from returning to her country after speaking out at the United Nations.
If you were allowed no rights in your own country because the color of your skin is different to that of the rulers.
Her passport was revoked. She couldn't go home, but her voice reached the entire world. Songs like Sophia Town is Gone reminded audiences abroad of the communities destroyed by apartheid. She became more than a singer. She became an ambassador for the struggle. The same was true for Hugh Masekela. His exile fueled songs like Steamer, which told the story of migrant workers on the coal trains. His trumpet became a weapon, blasting out the stories the South African government didn't want told. Exile hurt deeply. It meant losing home, culture, family, but it also amplified their message. Suddenly, the struggle of black South Africans wasn't just local, it was international. And when international solidarity picked up, the apartheid regime started to feel the heat. Western artists like Stevie Wonder, Peter Gabriel, and the Specials joined the fight. Songs like Biko and Sun City rallied global audiences. Artists united against apartheid, formed by Steven Van Zandt, brought musicians together to boycott South Africa and pressure governments. What started as the voice of exiled South Africans became a global choir demanding justice. But the cost of creating was often unbearable. Photographer Sam Nzima took one of the most haunting pictures in South African history: the body of 12-year-old Hector Peterson being carried during the Soweto uprising of 1976. That single image became an international symbol of apartheid's brutality. But what did it cost Nzima?
The threat was that they gave an instruction to the police that wherever I found Sam Nzima taking the pictures, you must shoot at him, kill him.
He was banned, harassed, put under house arrest. The state destroyed his film. They tried to erase him because they knew the power of his art. And then there's the tragic story of Thami, a visual artist who believed art was a weapon for liberation. Forced into exile in 1979, he never stopped using his art to fight. But in 1985, South African special forces raided his home in Botswana. They shot him, burned his house, and stole his artwork. To the apartheid government, his paintings were considered part of terrorist activities. His death reminds us that for many artists, success meant paying the ultimate price. So, how did these black artists succeed during apartheid? They succeeded by refusing to stop. They succeeded by bending the rules, by tricking the censors, by moving their art into underground spaces. They succeeded by carrying the struggle onto global stages when their own country silenced them. They succeeded because every song, every photograph, every performance was bigger than them. It was about a people fighting to be seen and heard. Their success wasn't about exemption from apartheid. It was about defiance of apartheid. They weren't given space to create. They carved it out with their own hands, often while bleeding. And in doing so, they not only inspired their own people, they helped fuel the international outrage that eventually brought apartheid to its knees. Today, when we celebrate the legacy of Miriam Makeba, Hugh Masekela, Winston Ngozi, Sam Nzima, Thami, and countless others, we're not just celebrating art, we're celebrating courage. We're celebrating a legacy built in defiance, a legacy that shows us the power of human creativity, even in the darkest times. Their story teaches us that art is never just entertainment. Under apartheid, art was a weapon, and with it, these black artists fought a war they weren't supposed to win, but somehow, against all odds, they did.